it fits with Jimmy Butler. Like, what did they do previously?
Yeah. Yep. They just liked each other, and they stroked each other until Jimmy decided to stop stroking Tibbs, and then all hell broke loose. It was just a weird deal. Weird. But anyway, Jimmy Butler, shut up. Just go away. Like, just shut up and play basketball. Or don't play basketball, but shut up. Either way. All right. Let's move over to the Vikings house here. There is no way, and nobody's trying, but there is no way to describe this season other than an abject failure. Correct?
Oh, 100%. The beauty of it, though, is my kids who are 14 and 12 within the last 2 years have gotten a really good sense of
what's ahead,
the misery that comes with being a Vikings fan.
That's true.
They'll pull you in and get your hopes up, and then they'll smash them to just into a billion pieces.
Yeah, they'll slam your dick in the door. It's brutal. It's just brutal. Every single time. So I guess the first question is: were the expectations? Yes, it's a disappointment and a failure of a season. Just to confirm, the expectations that everybody in the world had for this season for the Vikings, which was that they would be a contender. They had the defense. They had some of the pieces around the offense. They needed a quarterback. They got the quarterback. Nobody thought the offensive line was great coming into the season, but the expectations in general were that this was a year for them to continue to chase the championship because their window was still definitely open. Those were fair, right?
Oh, for sure. 100%.
Yeah, okay. So that being reestablished, cannot have a season like they just had. And the thing okay, so we can blame the offense's problems on the offensive line, and we can debate the degree to which that's a Zimmer problem versus a GM problem. But let's not overshadow or hide or try to sweep under the rug the established fact that Zimmer's vaunted defense seems to drop the meat in the dirt during big games.
Oh, 100%. And that's I wasn't sure if you were going to go there or not, but that's absolutely where I was headed with this. NFC title game last year.
Yep.
You cannot have 38 hung on you.
At home.
Cannot have it. And this year, let's just say that they could have. Well, obviously, they needed to get into the playoffs to kind of offset a disappointing regular season, and one or two playoff wins would have gone some length to that end. So they're finally struggling all game against Chicago, and they finally pulled to within 3, right? 13-10.
Right.
And they let the Bears rip off a 9.5 minute drive where they go like either 6 or 7 of 7 or 8 on third down.
Yep.
And if you are this big badass defense that you claim to hang your hat on, that's when you show up.
Yep. Absolutely. That is why you're there. Yes, completely agree.
And shutting down the Detroit Lions or the Miami Dolphins, as they're just playing the string of the season out. Sorry, that does nothing for me anymore. Show it to me when on the big stage, in the big moment, when you need the big stop.
Right. Exactly. Yep.
So
those other games are warm-ups.
Yes, for sure. So as far as I'm concerned, until I see differently, that defense is a fraud.
I agree, which gets me back to my point that I've been making about Zimmer forever, which is that he has done nothing still to prove to me that he is a good head coach. And I've been saying that he's welcome to be the defensive coordinator of my team anytime, and it's still a really good defense, but maybe the thing that's keeping that defense back is whatever small amount of time he spends thinking about offense.
And that's a good point, and I think it's a fair talker that, you know, he was brought here as a, whatever you want to call him, a defensive mastermind, whatever. But if you're the head coach, I mean, should you not be expected to? Ultimately, your fingerprints are on everything,
right?
And Zimmer was lauded when he gave the offense to Shermer, and stayed out of his way. And and it's funny to me because, like, judging NFL coaching and, like, judging, how a coordinator does, we see like 1% of all that goes into what those guys do, and it's result oriented, and that's what you touched on,
right?
But so Shermer, it just seemed like Shermer pushed all the right buttons last year, and now this year it was like the left hand didn't know what was going on with the right hand. It was just a cluster, and it just looked like a total mess.
Yep, I agree. Yeah. So, I don't know. Look, the Wolves have said that he and what's-his-face are safe. So that's the world we live in. They need to address the offensive line, and then they need to do better next year. They won't have as tough a schedule, right? They didn't finish first in the division. By the way, Bears, right? The reward for their kicker shanking their way to the playoffs is a first place schedule next season. That's awesome. But so they just got to do better. That's it. We're not at build-up stage for the Vikings. We're at the window's closing, and this window is closing. And yes, there will be another one at some point, but it's not a young team. And as I said with Tony last time, what are the odds that we get through next season with, Kirk and Thielen and Diggs and Rudolph all being relatively healthy the entire season? That's unusual.
Yeah, for sure, 100%.
So, I'm just, I'm still, I can't even say I'm over Zimmer because I was never really on board with Zimmer.
I don't know. I want to be on board with him, but I don't like. I really dislike. We got to run the ball more. You got Thielen and Diggs, who are two of the best wide receivers that the team has had since. Obviously, they're not Moss and Carter, but they're probably the two best receivers they've had since those guys.
And they're probably the two. They're at least arguably the best 1-2 tandem in the league right now.
That's fair. That's fair.
There's several teams with probably a better receiver than either of those two. But I don't know if there's really any team with two receiver, with 1 and 2 as good as those two.
Right, I would agree with that.
And you can throw Rudolph on there too.
Yeah, and yeah, it's weird, but I think you're right. I think they've really got to address the offensive line, and I know it got to be, fairly trendy to say that it's more than the offensive line, but you got to start somewhere, and I think that is where you start.
Well, not only that, but that cannot be the hardest position to address, or the hardest two positions to address. It can't.
No, I would agree.
Offensive linemen don't make $27 million a year, I guess is my point.
Right. And if you are going to bring in a quarterback who doesn't, doesn't
read
have the best
pocket.
pocket presence,
Jesus.
then you probably need to do all that you can to get him as big a pocket as you possibly can.
Yeah. Tim and Jim talked about it. You know, the Colts addressed their offensive line last season when Luck was out the whole season because of injuries, because of the line before that. And this year they gave up 41, I think, fewer sacks than last year. I mean, that means they gave up a shitload of sacks last year. But B, that's a huge number. 41? Like that, and look where they are. They won a game in the playoffs. You know, I mean, so as opposed to being out of the playoffs. So yeah, I think that's the offseason is really simple to me, right?
Would be to me.
Yeah. All right, let's talk wild here. Lonnie's rolling around with his microphone. So we knew what this. I think I'm balanced. The bottom line is we knew what this team is before the season started. And we've known because it's the same overall construct and the same hole in the construct that's been there forever with this team. They just don't have enough scoring, right? They're going to be responsible defensively, and they've got decent enough goaltending on the balance, on over the course of a season. They've got good secondary players. They just don't have score. They just can't score. They don't have enough scoring.
We could snip and cut and paste that out of just about every time we talk about these guys.
Yeah, it never changes. And we've talked about all the reasons why it can't change, and you can't just blow it up and blah 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 blah. And where those edicts come from the top and all this other stuff. So like we're not laying new track here, but and then the problem is that you get every season a group or a group of players who go through galling slumps at the same time. And right now it's Stahl and Nino and Zucker, among others. Granlund's in a bit of a slump, his one goal the other night notwithstanding.
Was that Granny's first in 21 games? Is that right?
Something like that. Yeah, some absurd number.
But to your point, that happens with so many of these guys where they go. I mean, honestly, 21 games, and I know Granny's not a 40 goal scorer. He's more of a setup guy. I get that, but 21 games, that's a quarter of your season.
Yeah.
You can't have your front end players going that freaking long without scoring. And you said it. That's been Nino, that's been Coyle, that's been Koivu. It just doesn't change. Now, the bright spot is it seems like Parisi has been able to.
Jeez Louise.
He's been bringing it, and he's been able to get a little something out of Coyle.
Yeah.
And, even they're even getting something out of Cunnin.
Yep.
So it seems like Parisi is doing more than his share, and not only that, he's helping out whoever gets plugged in to play with him.
Yeah, exactly. And Coyle at center. I mean, I don't know. I as of right now, I would take Coyle off my personal hot trade list. Like as long as he seems to have found something here. You said it with Parisi, but also at center. I don't know. I might. It seems crazy to say this, but I kind of. I don't know. I might not want to trade him right now.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, it's a mirage, right? We talked about it earlier. It's the guy that teases you, and like I said, Coyle's my guy. Not he's the guy that I'll put up with though, not Wiggins. But Coyle is that guy. Like I acknowledge that everything he's done in his career up to this point suggests that this is just a phase, and he'll revert back to being a black hole some point relatively soon. But we need centers because Stahl isn't providing a whole lot right now. Mikko's playing pretty well, I think, this season overall. And then whatever the fourth line is, right? But I don't know. I don't know that you can move him right unless you get another center. If you can trade him for a center, then okay.